I bought a Tapper colt at the Keeneland September sale and incredibly excited about that purchase. It was a colt that had plenty of size and scope and carried himself with a real presence that drew me to him.
I bought a Tapper colt out of Black Coronas at the Phasey Tipton July sale, out of a Curlin mare, big beautiful horse. We're real excited about him coming up in the spring.
Taprit, standing at Gainesway.
Well, last week were the last of the 170-point preps towards the Kentucky Derby, and we've got a new leader atop the Derby Watch Top 20. Hi, everybody. I'm Jay Privman, along with Marty McGee, and Marty's the one who sets the odds for our Derby Watch grid each week. And Marty, you've staked your turf on the current favorite for the Kentucky Derby, and it was based on a race that you were at last week. Let's go through the updated grid.
Well, we have a new favorite, Jay, in Zandon, the Bluegrass winner. I'm taking a little Twitter grief on it, and I think it's going to be real close.
Grief on Twitter?
Yeah, believe it or not. And I think it's going to be really close. And my mentor, Dale Austin, the late Dale Austin of the Baltimore Sun, told me never make a horse 9-2. So I've got 4-1 and 5-1 on Zandon and Epicenter, and then the two horses that ran in the Santa Anita Derby, 1-2 at Taba and Messier at 8-1, followed by the newly crowned Wood winner Mo Donegal at 10-1, the Florida Derby winner White Barrio at 10-1, and everybody else 12, 15, 20, bunch of 30s and 50s. And I tell you what, Jay, this is shaping up to be a really good Derby. It
really is, and we saw some terrific performances last weekend that we're going to recap in just a moment. Marty, before we move on to that, I do want to ask you one question, though, about setting the line. And I agree that Zandon and Epicenter are the top two choices for the race right now. But I'm wondering, how much do you think the public, because I know that's what you're trying to do, is gauge the public, emphasizes maybe a bit of a recency bias? In other words, if the races of Zandon and Epicenter were transposed and Zandon's race was first and Epicenter's had been the more recent one, do you think maybe Epicenter might be favored right now or not?
I definitely took that into consideration. It was 2 weeks after, and like you said, there is a recency bias. You also have the Chad Brown bias. I think he's about the strongest trainer in terms of attracting mutual play, and just the way that the way that people view horses coming on late, and the way that Zandon closed so stoutly. I think it has really left an impression. Again, I think it'll be really close in terms of favoritism. And there are years when you just kind of shake your head when you look at the board, like the year that Sweet Northern Saint was favored over Barbaro. You're like, okay. And so, we as line makers are just trying to get the pulse of the bettors. We've still got, 3+ weeks to go. So during that span, we might get a feeling that Epicenter will be clearly favored, maybe not. Right now, I do like Zandon slightly to be the favorite in the Derby.
And the reason he's favored is off of his terrific performance in the Bluegrass last Saturday at Keeneland. Marty was there. Marty, the 1-2 finishers out of that race, Zandon and Smile Happy, both going on to the Kentucky Derby. But let's start with Zandon, who, one of the things I really liked about his race was not only the acceleration that he showed when he finally was able to get out of the traffic that he was in, but I like how coolly Flavien Prat sat on him, as though he knew what he had under him, and it was just, all right, I'm not going to panic here and rush him into a blind switch. I'm going to wait, and when I find a seam, I know I've got what's under me. What did you think of his race?
Well, it was kind of a curious trip in that with 7/8 or so to go, Jay, he was up there about 8th or 9th. And then slowly but surely, he made his way back to 11th, and even passing the 3/8 pole, he had nobody beat. And then he got kind of lucky, but it was also well gauged by him in that he came through a hole that opened. He was all of a sudden 6th. Then he saved some ground, went got lucky again about leaving the quarter pole and came inside, and then he angled him out. All of it without a moment's hesitation. And that was just so key. As you said, it was just so cool and well done by Flavien Prat, who was so terrific on opening weekend at Keeneland. And then the horse just powered home the way that Chad Brown thought he would. And Chad had a lot of good things to say about the way the horse had trained up to the race, and how he just loves the way that he's going to be coming into the Kentucky Derby.
So he wins the Bluegrass. Smile Happy finished second. He had also finished second to Epicenter in the Risen Star in his prior race. Zandon had been third in the Risen Star. So a very key race was the Risen Star. Let's, though, talk about Smile Happy's performance. I thought it was a different trip than we've seen him get in his previous couple of races, Marty, in that he was closer to the pace. He didn't try and make sort of one run. He hasn't really made a one run kind of horse, but he's been a little farther back, I think, in his races. So I'm kind of two minds of his race. I think he might be better if he's held up a little bit more early, but even though he was wide in this race, I thought based on the way the pace unfolded, he was in the right spot. What did you think of his race?
He definitely was. He was wide on the first turn, not so much on the second turn when he came and got Emmanuel. But I thought maybe he was a little keen off the 7-week layoff. And Kenny McPeak told me the other day that he thought that maybe Zandon handled the Keeneland Strip a little bit better than Smile Happy. I don't know. I still think that the Run Happy, who was the sprint champion, he's kind of untested in terms of the 1.25 miles and that. But Kenny is full of confidence, as you might imagine. And all he wanted to do was assure a spot with enough points, and it's onward and upward as far as he's concerned for Smile Happy from here on in.
And as you mentioned, Emmanuel was the horse who they both ran down. He ended up finishing third in the race, but afterwards he was taken off the Derby trail. It looks like he's going to head to the grass for his next start. So he is one of the horses that we removed from our Derby Watch top 20 this week to add, among others, Taiba, who won the Santa Anita Derby. And we'll take a look at that now because he and Messier ran 1-2 in this race. And Marty, I thought this was a giant performance on the part of Taiba. I was very skeptical of him being able to go from a 6-furlong maiden win 5 weeks earlier, stretch out around 2 turns, run against Messier in Forbidden Kingdom in a Grade 1 race, and to be successful in that kind of a situation. But not only was he successful, he put away Messier in the final yards of the race and won his best and got a strong buyer speed figure on par with what Epicenter got in the Risen Star. I thought it was a terrific performance. What did you think of his race?
I mean, how could you not? I mean, he got a big buyer. He checked a whole lot of boxes, Jay, and so often we are skeptical about a horse going from a 6-furlong maiden win to a Grade 1 route. And for him to have done it the way he did it was really terrific. But, you know, as you have referenced in some of your writings, for him to take the next step from the Santa Anita Derby with just 2 prior starts, and you wrote a terrific story about Leonatus, the 1883 Kentucky Derby winner. He's the last horse to have run with just 2 starts, to have won the Derby with just 2 starts. So for him to do that and run against 19 horses, not just 5, include the Santa Anita Derby basically boiled down to a 3-horse race right away. So for him to do it in traffic, going the longer distance with the very limited experience that he has quite a tall task in front of him.
Yeah, that'll be the big question to be asked of him on Derby Day, and we'll evaluate that as we get closer. But I share, obviously, the skepticism of being able to pull it off. But look, I was very skeptical of him being able to pull off what he did in the Santa Anita Derby, and he came through beating his stablemate Messier, who finished second in a solid performance. But, you know, Marty, I thought even though maybe you could give Messier a little bit of benefit of the doubt for not having run for 2 months, I thought he was beaten on the square in this race. And it was similar to what happened in the Los Alamitos Futurity when Slowdown Andy beat him. And it was a good, solid race. Maybe he'll move forward off of this, but I wanted to see a little bit more from him. What did you think of Messier?
Well, a lot of folks are referencing that this is the same type of scenario that happened last year with Medina Spirit, where he was clearly beaten by Rock Your World in the Santa Anita Derby. But, you know, that was then, and then the Kentucky Derby is going to be a different day and a different scenario. So I like the fact he got the race under him. I would consider him more dangerous, Jay, than Taiba.
Yeah, and that was just to go back to what happened last year. I mean, Rock Your World won that race over a track where nobody made up any ground, and Medina Spirit chased the whole way and ran very well in the context of what the track was playing that day. So I don't know that I would compare what happened in that race last year. I know you're not. You're just saying that that's what some people are saying. I would not come down on equating those two as being of similar value. They're not at all in my mind. One other horse out of the Santa Anita Derby, Marty, just to put a period on the end of this sentence, was Forbidden Kingdom, who stopped badly. He's off the Derby trail now. We had him in our Derby Watch top 20, but we had been skeptical of him being able to go 2 turns before he won the San Felipe, and he made at least me look quite foolish there. But he did not run well at all in the Santa Anita Derby, and he's off the trail. So he's another one of the horses that we moved out to move some others in. Lastly, let's move on now to New York and the Wood Memorial. Mo Donegal won this race, and he and Zandon had run 1-2 in that order in the Remsen last December at Aqueduct. And so now Mo Donegal returning to the track that we know he loves. I thought, Marty, he ran well. He moved forward off of a necessary comeback race that he had in Florida in the Holy Bull. But I thought he had as gorgeous a trip as you could possibly imagine in the Wood Memorial. What did you think of his race?
It was very Rosario-like in that he just pushed all the buttons at the right moments. Once he got cleared approaching the 8th pole and was put to a drive, the horse closed the way that we saw him close in the Holy Bull. Or it was the Fountain of Youth? It was the Holy Bull where he closed so stoutly and went past Simplification beyond the 16th pole there at Gulfstream Park. So if you're Todd Pletcher, Jay, you got to be really happy with the way this horse ran. Obviously, the pace in the Derby is going to have to play in his favor, as well as a horse like Zandon in terms of some of the speed softening up the more serious contenders. But I thought all in all, it was really a terrific effort. It's hard to knock. You don't know what he beat in early voting. Chad Brown is kind of being a little coy or hesitant in terms of committing early voting to the Kentucky Derby. Wants to see how he trains for another week or so. And but all in all, again, it was a terrific run from Mo Donegal.
And we've left early voting on our Derby Watch top 20. And Marty, you were just referencing the potential pace of the race, and I think that's one of the things that the connections of early voting are going to evaluate as to whether or not they go on to the Kentucky Derby. The pace in the Wood Memorial certainly changed dramatically at the start, with Morello breaking as poorly as he did. And I thought early voting ended up getting a much easier trip than we would have imagined going into the race because of that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're off and you lose if you had Morello. So, Steve Asmussen has not completely ruled him out of the Kentucky Derby, but it looks highly doubtful, and that's why we've taken him off the list.
So that's the look at the 370-point races from last week. There's only one more point-scoring race on the road to the Derby, and then that'll be that. And that's the Lexington Stakes this Saturday at Keeneland. And you'll find a preview of that in the other Derby Watch video here from Marty and I. For Marty McGee, I'm Jay Privman. Thanks for watching.